was a very fear-based child, and yet I didn't have the ability to communicate that. And, literally taken out of bed at early hours of the morning, I was taken to an airport because I never felt part of society. I think the drive was if I could perhaps walk along someone's journey and perhaps show that there is another way. Here right now, talking to you, I am the best I've ever been. It's when I go forwards or backwards. So when I go forwards, I'm in fear, I'm in anxiety, I'm in worry, and if I go back, I'm in shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yo, what's happening, people? I want to welcome you to Flip the Script podcast show. My name is Sol and I am the host. So, on this show, you'll get the opportunity to listen to some inspiring people talking about real, honest, heartfelt, no holds barred transformation stories. We get to hear from ex-drug users, reformed criminals, all sharing their personal stories and how they manage not only to turn their lives around, but now are helping others to do the same. We also get to hear from courageous men and women sharing their experience of surviving high-level trauma and what they are doing or done to start that much-needed healing process. Okay, well, welcome to Flip the Script podcast show. My name is Sol, I'm the host, as most people know. And if you don't know, I am the host. This podcast show is about people that come along and talk about their transformation journeys, real life stuff, where they've come from and what they're doing now and how they got there really. What are the tools they've implemented, what are they doing in their lives and all that stuff. I have got somebody who is a great friend of mine. I've known you for a little while. I've got Nick, who is currently living in one of the worst places ever, doing the worst, shittiest job ever. Yeah. His life is completely shit. I don't know why we've got you on here.
I don't know. It's awful. It's awful, Sol.
I know.
It's awful.
And Nick,
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you and what you're doing? What shitty job are you doing at the moment? Where are you living?
Okay, I'm in probably one of the worst places in the world. I'm currently residing in the beautiful Indonesian island of Bali. Tropical island, in fact, island of the gods, as it's known. So it's a struggle, but, I'm up for the challenge. And I'm very blessed, actually, to have founded, which has been a dream of mine for a long time. I founded my own rehabilitation facility, recovery house, sort of second stage for people suffering with addiction and alcoholism and making that transition coming from active addiction. And we provided a beautiful facility with a beautiful program. We opened in March. So I'm very blessed and very proud, actually, and acknowledge that I'm proud in setting up something here that I believe will really help people on their journey, transforming, as you said, their lives from where they were to where they are now. So I'm very lucky in that I've had the opportunity to do that, really. So
wow,
it's a difficult gig, but
it sounds it, mate. What a horrible place to live, and what a horrible thing, what a horrible work. Oh, you must get up in the morning and think, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The dread, Sol.
Dread. Tell me about it. So listen, obviously, that's absolutely beautiful what you're doing, and I follow you. I see what you're doing, and I know that this has not happened just overnight. This is something that you've been in the trenches, you've worked in the services, drug services, or just a little bit what you've done in your history of work before you decided to kind of do what you are doing now.
Well, I've worked in the field of addiction for over 15 years. And I think coming through my own personal journey, if you like, and coming out the other side, it was a case of I was a bit directionless initially. And I thought, what would I really like to do? And I think the drive for me has been about wanting to help people and wanting to give back, particularly because my own personal journey took me through the criminal justice system and statutory services while trying to find myself. So that was the initial start of it, and the first part of my career really was working in British prisons and my own personal history of spending a lot of time on the other side of that door in that environment. And I think the drive was if I could perhaps walk along someone's journey and perhaps show that there is another way. because I didn't know there was another way to live. So I went back and educated myself and went to college and got my counselling degree and started working in British prisons. And I ended up working for a fantastic organisation for about 8 years in 2 prisons just outside of London. Then I ended up working for a charity in London, managing 30 supported houses in 6 boroughs in inner London. Again, people entrenched in homelessness and offending. And it really was working with the most vulnerable people in our community. And then had the opportunity to work in Asia, in Thailand, and I worked for moving away from statutory services and charities into the private sector, if you like, which was there was a transition for me for that as well, because there is a business model weighted to it. And I've always worked with charities and services that were funded by local authorities. So that was a transition in itself for me. But it also gave me the opportunity and opened my eyes to, perhaps what I could bring to the table. Okay. And obviously the pandemic hit and it was very difficult. And I had an opportunity to come to Bali and set up something for myself, which has been an absolute dream of mine for a long time. So I've had experience of going through years of local authority drug treatment services and day programs and stuff like that. And then I've worked in it for a long time. So I've got an essence of what works and what doesn't work and what worked for me. So I like to think it's not what I'm bringing here, it's more how I'm bringing it. Do you know, with some integrity, with some ethics, with some more, it's not weighted on the business model. So, I'm hoping it stands me in good stead. I wear my heart on my sleeve. And so I've got it. Brilliant. But it's been a 15, 16-year journey of, like you said, working in the trenches, working in prisons, on the wings. And that was hard work, but so rewarding, challenging, but really rewarding as well. Yeah. So I think I've grown a lot as a result of that experience, actually. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So you've done all of that. You are where you are at the moment, living a dream, I would say. Some would say, absolutely in the dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us, you spoke a little bit about, you went through the system yourself. You've come through the criminal justice system. Tell us a little bit about Nick growing up. Where are you from? How was it? And what was it that transformation, that journey, your journey from being a kid and whatever, and, getting to where you are, I suppose. Tell us a little bit about Nick as a kid.
Well, Nick as a kid, I think the essence of kind of always feeling a little bit lost, maybe, I suppose. So I grew up in the first 5.5 years, I grew up in North Africa, in Algeria. Okay. So my father's Algerian and my mother's English. And we lived in Annaba, which is a port in Algeria. To be honest, I don't remember much about that, to be honest. My first sort of memory, really, and I think it might have kind of planted a seed, really, to that sense of I was a very fear-based child, and yet I didn't have the ability to communicate that, and there was a real sense of, there was a real lack of safety. So I was kind of smuggled out of Algeria during the end of the war with France and literally taken out of bed at early hours of the morning. I was taken to an airport and I was put on an aeroplane. And I never saw my father again. And I didn't see my mother it was about a year later. And I remember getting to Charles de Gaulle Airport. I was about 5.5 years of age. I lost all my luggage at the airport, and I got to Heathrow Airport, and all I'd left was a Barbar the Elephant book. Remember Barbar the Elephant? Very symbolic. I've actually got a Barbar the Elephant sitting on my bed as we speak. It's very symbolic to me. And I was met by a nanny. And I lived with her for a while. Then at about 7.5, I was sent away to boarding school. This was in the early 70s. I couldn't speak English. I could only speak French and a bit of Arabic, and struggled desperately in public school in the 70s. So I'm from quite a middle class, upper class upbringing, if you like, and I don't know if boarding school was the thing that they did, but the reality, Sol, is that you know, for whatever reason, my parents did the best they could with what they had. That was the fact. The feeling was, however, that I was being thrown away. And that sense of not being wanted and being kind of disregarded, and that sense of just feeling inadequate set off a series of behaviours at boarding school. And I've done a lot of work in my counselling training, and I've done a lot of therapy. So I've got a lot of awareness of kind of what was going on. But around 6 or 7, I started losing my identity, if you like. Because I think, not on a conscious level, but I felt so little of myself that I desperately sought outside approval. I desperately wanted to be liked. I was an attention seeker. I craved acceptance. And the way that I got attention was through behaving in a negative way. I just wanted to be seen and heard. And it was a very, dare I say, posh school. My grandparents paid for it, so it was quite expensive. It was a fee-paying school, but I detested it. So, to be honest with you, I ran away loads of times and was found in fields in Surrey and brought back to school, and so didn't really have a relationship with my parents per se, if you like, and kind of growing up from a young age in an institution, I believe that sense that I had of not really belonging and not feeling part of, and that sense of feeling inadequate and the attention seeking. And I remember at school, I used to own up to stuff that I hadn't done. Okay. Do you know what I mean? I remember once I was about 9 or 10, someone had been going around, no, this has just come up. Someone had been going around destroying people's school books and all that, cutting them up with scissors. And there was a big meeting in the school chapel, and the headmaster, and I owned it, and I hadn't done it, and got myself in a world of trouble. And looking back, that was about, I'm here, you know, see me, you know what I mean? And that behaviour in a negative way got me seen and heard and got me attention, albeit negative, if you like. And it was a sort of school that in the end, my behaviours, it wasn't a case of being expelled. I was asked to leave. It was one of them. So my mum was called down, and I was asked to leave around the age of 14. And not long after that, again, due to my behaviours, my mum politely asked me to leave. And I'd been arrested for a couple of petty crimes. My mum couldn't cope, and so I was kind of put into services and put into a care home while I was on bail. And
how old was you then, Nick?
To be honest with you, I was 15 when I went to detention centre. It was the old Willie White law, short, sharp shot.
Bed packs.
I went to bed packs, medicine balls and benches, and running
circuit training,
and getting different coloured ties. And I ended up in Send Detention Centre in the week before Christmas, 1980.
Wow.
And that was a traumatic experience, to be honest with you. I was 15 in August, that's right. So I was just older than 15, and that started a whole career path around the criminal justice, because I never lived at home again, so I was kind of homeless. And again, it wasn't so much about having grown up in an institution, albeit a boarding school. You know, detention centre, and then Borstal recalls and YPs. There was I don't know if there was a sense of safety or camaraderie, or I kind of
belonging
to institutions quite well. There was a sense of belonging.
Totally.
I don't know. I was experienced, but every time I went away, I'd see the same faces on the yard, and everybody, all right, how long you do? There was a sense of being at home, and you know, talking about role models, and you know, I didn't really have any male role models, and I kind of gravitated to the older guys who from the outside seemed to have kind of the stuff that I wanted, and nice cars and jewelry and girls and stuff like that. And I kind of gravitated towards that. And there was a kind of distorted sense of respect about the length of sentences you got, whether you could put your hands up, the amount of drugs you could do, and obviously substances came into play at quite an early age around the time I was asked to leave school. So the substance use started early. It wasn't I don't know if we was at abuse or misuse stage, but we definitely started using and misusing substances. So there was never really a sense of, the family that I gravitated to were, you know, I'm from a middle class background. I gravitated to the council estates. I'm not from the flats. I didn't grow up in that world, but I gravitated towards that. There was a sense of being around working class people in the 70s and 80s. The doors were open. I was fed by people who would bring me into their homes. There was a real sense of family and warmth on the council estates, and yet people's perception of the council estates
some would say,
was that
some would say it was like it's like you found your tribe when you really needed it the most.
Absolutely, absolutely,
because I think
and felt welcomed.
Exactly, and I think when you spoke about it a little bit earlier, you said about that when you got to institutions, you just felt you don't know what it was a camaraderie. It was your tribe. You found dysfunction of people that you could identify with, that you could relate to, and they was your people at that time. You know what I mean? I totally. The reason I said it, because I was just like you as well, and I get it. Like, I felt the safest when I was around people in an institution. You'd think that some kids would say, you talked about social, being in care, it was like these dysfunctional kids that we all knew, we all kind of understood each other, and we found each other in some way. And like you said, sadly, you see them throughout the systems and whatever. So just absolutely, I get that, man. Like the whole finding your tribe.
There was a sense of family. There was a sense of family. I didn't have any brothers or sisters. I didn't have any uncles or aunts. There was no real sense of family or nurture. And I found that in institutions, albeit I say it was it was my reality at the time, and it felt safe. You used the word safe. I felt safe in institutions. So a sense of belonging, that sense of finding my people, really. We function within the dysfunction, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah. It's familiarity, isn't it? That's what it comes down to, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you're in this institution, you're having it with the older boys that, you're gravitating to the council state, the people from the flats, you're getting into all sorts of. So talk a little bit about, your progression around the crime and the drugs and stuff like that when you was.
Well, from 14, 15, I suppose, again, going to the council estates, I remember my first experience really of we used to hang out under the flats in the garages. And in them days, we was, the jazz funk soul scene was coming out, but there was some remnants of Supertramp and Pink Floyd, and it was about hot knives and buckets. And I remember joining a Free the Weed campaign. And for me, looking back, it was antisocial, it was rebellious, it was naughty, and that was really appealing to me because I never felt part of society. I always felt, from being kind of sent away, coming from a foreign country, I suppose mixed race in some way, couldn't really speak English when I got here. I never felt that sense of belonging. So being on the periphery of society and hanging out with guys that were not conforming to society's rules, if you like, really appealed to me. And with that, I often share in other places around putting the plastic into plastic gangster, because albeit I was a kind of more of a petty criminal, burgling houses, stealing cars, shoplifting, that kind of stuff. And my progression in substances kind of coincided with my progression through the criminal justice sentence. And there was no, that facade or persona, masks, I call them now, really. I put on different masks, and that chameleon-like type person that I would adapt to different scenarios, and I could hang with different subcultures, from a soul boy and a mod and kind of easily adapt into different subcultures within our society at the time. And there was a lot of that in the sort of late 70s and 80s. Music was always a big passion of mine, and drugs at the time seemed to enhance that. And to sum it up, really, at those times, I kind of loved doing what I was doing with the people I was doing it with, and the drugs seemed to work. I seemed to be having a lot of fun at the start of it before it kind of turned. And there was a lot of shoplifting, burgling houses. I wouldn't say burglary is not a petty crime now, and in hindsight, it's an awful crime actually.
Yeah.
And it's happened to me since I made the changes I need to make. Me and my daughter was burgled while we was in the house, and it's a horrible thing. But I think growing up in South London, everyone I had it with were kind of doing the same thing. I did feel that sense of being a part of something. And obviously, in the late 80s, when all the acid house stuff came along and the rave scene came along, that was a big part of where we was at the real beginning of it. And I was in Ibiza in 87, 88 with a lot of the pioneers and Shum, a lot of the start of the acid house. And for me, that was really exciting. It was new, it was underground. And again, that really appealed to, non-conformist attitudes. I was an anti-authoritarian. I didn't get driving licenses. I didn't pay tax. I didn't work. I stole what I wanted. I just was lost a little bit, although believed that I was on the right path, sort of thing. Yeah. So it was always that sense of looking for something, looking to fit, looking to belong. And I think I wouldn't say there was a loss of identity, really, because I kind of dressed how you dressed, and I talked how you talked, and I walked how you. So there was a sense of that loss of self, and as the drugs progressed, what I've learned is when it moves into addiction, it's separation from self and others. So it was, I was getting, the more people I was having it with, the lonelier I felt inside. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. So within all this time, like, you was gravitating to people, you was, putting the mask on, you was doing all this stuff, as some would say, I'd be anything you want me to be, that sort of stuff. Yeah. Was there anybody that was positive in your life that you could say, right, if you look back in hindsight, you thought, you know what, this person or that whatever was really trying to talk to me and trying to get through to me, but whatever the situation was there anybody in your life that you could say?
There was a couple of people, and I was thinking about this, that weren't necessarily talking to me, but they were modeling a different behavior, which at the time, in front of others, I would kind of mock or belittle. And there was people that grew up with us that kind of veered off that and was going to work every day. And they were saving up to get a mortgage, and they were paying and I would kind of look down on them. And I remember a couple of people at an early age saying, you've got to sort yourself out, Nick. You're going down the wrong path. And actually, in hindsight, there was a couple, and it's just come to me now. There was I was in Borstal, and because I loved cooking, and I did a little bit of catering college when I first left school, just to engage in a catering course. And one of the kitchen officer really kind of tried to mentor me on my first, but I ended up going back to the same Borstal because it changed to YP and stuff like that. If I was the first one to do it, I went back there 3 times, and I always worked in the kitchen. And he really tried to mentor me and kind of steer me off this path that he could see that I was on. I was 15, 16, 17, already done quite a few institutions. And he would really sit down and try and encourage me to find another way and go and follow a career path in catering, follow your passions, Nick. But I was so kind of drawn to the other side of things. And would often mock people that I saw in my area that were starting to get jobs, save up mortgages, and kind of do the right thing for whatever reason. But where it was a difficult one, Sol, because I didn't have a dad, I didn't have any older brothers, and my sort of distorted sense of my role models were the guys on the pavement that were driving the nice motors, that had the kettles, that had the girls, and I desperately wanted to be someone that I wasn't really, I suppose. I kind of lost who I am, if you like. So,
we spoke about it a little bit earlier. I think, you spoke about, I said it, and I think you could have understood it as well, that it was like, even though you subconsciously was looking for safety, and these people were kind of as a little kid, like you said, you know, you was kind of picked up from a place, you know, what you knew, and all of a sudden you're put in a different country, you know, all your safety in it, you know, the whole feeling of being with your family and everything. You're, you know, like you said, you're this lost kid, you know, you're looking for your safety, and I suppose these people that you gravitated towards showed that they had respect and people would lead them, and it's like a form of kind of safety, like you was part of this tribe that you could be safe
Absolutely.
in. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. It was always looking for that sense of belonging, that sense of safety. And I think in hindsight, just wanting to be liked and wanting to be wanted, and where that didn't come from where it should have done, and I don't apportion blame, it is what it is. There is no blaming, but just looking for that nurture and that comfort and that safety, and just on occasion to be told, you know what, it'll be all right.
yeah,
And where that didn't come from where it was supposed to come from, for whatever reason, you start looking out there for it.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And I'm desperate for your validation. I need your approval. So what that did is I started doing stuff I didn't really want to do, because I had a conscience that I didn't really want to, but I just wanted to be liked, loved, wanted, held, supported, safety, just that. And I think that's what I've been searching for all my life, a sense of belonging,
yeah,
really.
absolutely. So now you've spoke about, you know, it was really good at early days, you know, with the substances, you know, the acid house era, Ibiza, all that stuff, partying. When did it start going wrong? When did it actually start to go wrong for you? What happened?
Uh, so there was a sense of fun and recreational use, and the parties and the music and the fashion, and it was all really exciting. And I can't define at what point, but there was a line that I crossed where it just stopped being fun, you
Okay.
know. And I started using substances that I swore I'd never use. Not growing up where I grew from, but the crowd that I had it with kind of looked down on certain substances and certain people that did those substances. And again, using substances that I swore I'd never do. And somewhere along the line, it stopped being fun, and I started to experience a lot of consequences. Yeah, I couldn't take responsibility for any of the stuff that happened to me. The prison sentences were getting a little bit longer. I used with people until I couldn't use with people, and my using kind of progressed to where I was using on my own. It became quite lonely, quite isolating, quite desperate. I always had reservations that when the party stopped and when the fun stopped, then I would stop. And when the party stopped and the fun stopped, and I really did want to stop, I found that I couldn't stop. And the sort of last 10 years of my journey in substances, you know, when it gets to the point where I can't stop doing what I don't want to do, then it just became painful. So it became desperate. Uh, what the substances did, I suppose, and what addiction did is it kind of took everything outside of me, but then it started working inside out, if you like. So my
Yeah.
morals had gone out the window. I was doing moves that I wasn't proud of. It took my spirit, my sense of humour, my laughter had gone. It was very lonely. It was very isolating. It was very desperate, and I really didn't know a way out. I didn't know a way out at that time. And that was over sort of from 14, 15 to nearly, I was coming up 38, 39 years of age now. And a lot of my friends had then, the people that I gravitated to had kind of dropped me out for, understandably. The family had gone. You know, during my journey, I'd had two beautiful children. And on a subconscious level, my perception of being betrayed and abandoned by my parents and sort of swearing that I would never do that, and yet I did that. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, my drug use came before the love and support of my children at that time. And so I'd kind of lost my family, uh, partners, friendships, and it just became very lonely, homelessness, prison set, hospitals, police stations. My life consisted of warrants and bails and fines and curfews and reporting and signing on and in and out of different institutions outside as well, probation hostels,
the whole,
those. It just went from the light and the party at some level, and I don't know where it was. A certain substance really drove me to the ground, and it became very dark and very lonely, and I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I didn't know what to do, and felt even more lost and alone and unsafe than I've ever felt. Do you know what I mean? So there was no real defining moment. It was just a process, I think, over a couple of year period where
you got sick and tired of being sick and tired, as they say. You know what I mean? Yeah,
sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was so sick and so tired, and yet part of me desperately wanted something different. And I always used to share this because I remember distinctly, going from court to Wandsworth, and I remember it's raining. I'm looking out the little window in the bus, and I see normal people, not normal people. I see people going about their business. The girl on the checkout, woman running for the tube, someone carrying their bags of shopping, struggling to make ends meet, but doing and in front of people, I'd mug people off. Do you know what I mean? But I think deep down, for me, that there was a longing of a semblance of normality, of being able to be part of a society that I lived in, and I think I desperately wanted that life, really, that where I kind of am part of society. I'm going to work, I'm paying bills, I'm paying tax, I'm doing all that stuff. I had this thing about live fast, die young, but I didn't die, so I got old.
Thankfully. So when did it change then for you again, after you got to the point of, I suppose, despair, destruction? What happened? What was the moment? Where did you flip the script, as they would say, as I would say?
The moment started when I flipped the script. Love that. When the flip the script on my last prison sentence, and my son had just been born. He was 6 weeks old, and I'd been on bail for a while, and I ended up going to prison for 3 years. And it was during that sentence that something inside, and I was 35 years of age. Something changed on that sentence. Something fundamentally changed. I don't know if it was the age I was at. I didn't really see any people that when I got there. The officers seemed a lot younger. And I remember my partner, and I had 2 children, my daughter and my son, thought that South London was the problem. So they moved down to near Guildford to Farnham. And the point was, I remember writing this letter, and if people have been to prison, they'll know how it starts. It normally starts with babe, one of them, babe. This is it, new start, new area. And I was convinced that it was the area that was the problem. There's an epidemic in that area. I've got to get away from them people and that area, and I'll be all right. And she moved down to Farnham. And I remember writing this letter that I was going to make the changes that I needed, that I wanted to show up, I wanted to be a dad, I wanted to be a partner, and to kind of give me one more chance. Do you know what I mean? Just one more. And I was sorry, which had fallen on deaf ears for a long time. But at the time of writing it, I meant it. I tried to get onto a drug treatment program that was in that institution at the time, but I was still using, and I failed 2 drug tests. But it introduced me to a support group that I went to a first meeting of where people meet, and I believe a seed was planted then. And that was in 1999. And I'll never forget, I was released from Wandsworth, July the 15th, 1999. And I remember standing outside, waiting to be picked up. And my partner came and picked me up, and we drove back down to Farnham. And I honestly believed, and there was a real desire to want to make the changes then. But I still wasn't at the point where I was kind of desperate enough. I didn't really know what I needed to do. And I continued to use and continued to behave. But then in the end, she said to me, "Can you please go away?" No, she actually said, "Get help, Nick, or get out."
Mm.
So I thought, "Okay, I'll get out. I'll get out." I remember going to the doctor, and I managed to get a referral, and I managed, luckily, to get into a 12-step treatment centre called St Joseph's in Hazelmere, which is sadly not there anymore through lack of funding. But again, I was informed about the disease of addiction. I went through detox, desperate to get in there, Yet, as soon as I came out of detox and I went up into where the groups were, I had a whole different agenda then. I believed the lie that was in my head that it wasn't that bad, that I'd over-exaggerated it. We blew that out of proportion. It can be different. I had a real issue around abstinence. I was clear around certain drugs, but I wasn't, but I haven't got a problem there, whatever. And I remember going from there, getting sent to your wonderful hometown, actually.
Ah.
So I entered the Pompey region. So I ended up in Portsmouth, Anna, a place. I think it's still there. I don't know.
They're still
And introduced to, it was sort of secondary treatment there. But again, my behaviours, I didn't use then, but my behaviours, again, I was asked to leave. I keep getting asked to go away, Sol. That's the message from my life is, can you please go away? Do you know what I mean? And there was only one place where they said, please keep coming back, which was an alien concept, because I think for whatever reason, I had a real sense of, I found it really difficult to trust people. And I had a real inability, and this is it really, for the essence of my life. And I would encourage anyone that might be in that place, is that I'd lost the ability to tell you how I really felt. And I'd lost the ability to tell you who I really am, because I spent so much of my life trying to be you, whoever you were. And I think the next 5 or 6 years, I bounced into different treatment centres, Colwyn House in Weymouth, Quinton in Bournemouth, Portsmouth, you know what I mean? I've done detoxes in treatment centres. And I honestly believe that I couldn't stop because I hadn't hit that place where I was desperate enough. And I still thought I could do it my way, and I couldn't let anyone in, and I couldn't get vulnerable, and I couldn't get honest. And it kept taking me back out the door, really. And my behaviours hadn't changed. The bits of time that I weren't using drugs, I was just insane. And I'm really grateful that I think that the absolute and rock bottom is a term that, go on, son.
Yeah, no, I'm listening.
Rock bottom is a term that's used a lot in addiction. People need to hit bottom, or you need to find your rock bottom. And I think for many years I'd woken up to an external rock bottom, the prisons, the homelessness, the chaos and the drama that goes with that. That became almost comfortable as well. And for me, there was something inside had snapped. And I don't know. And I remember it distinctly, and I never want to forget it. On April the 9th, 2004, there wasn't a massive consequence, but there was almost a complete collapse spiritually, where I kind of just surrendered. And I'd been around a lot of people that were giving me suggestions on how I could perhaps save my life, and I kept questioning it. I kept trying to do it my way, and at that point, I put my hands up and I just said, "Tell me what to do, because I'm dying." You know what I mean? And that, I think what happened is all the arrogance and all the ego and all the bravado, and my mantra every time I went to places was, "I'm all right. I'm all right. You're all right, sweet, sorted, pucker, blinder, I'm all right, I'm sweet." I had this mask and this defence on that if I really told you that I was scared and that I was lonely and that I needed help, you'd tell me to go away. Because all my life I was told to go away. So I'm shutting up shop here. But something snapped on that particular day. And I think that being able to ask for help was the real change. I was desperate enough to ask for help and listen to people that had gone before me. And I'd run out of ideas, and I said, "Tell me what to do." And I stopped questioning it. And I did what I was told. And a lot of it was about doing the stuff I didn't want to do. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what creates change. if I keep doing what Nick wants to do, then, you know what I mean? That old saying, if I always do what I've always done, I'll always get what I've always got. Nothing's going to change. And so I think I was at that point of 39 years of age that something inside had snapped. And that, what you said, sick and tired of being sick and tired. That contradiction, I suppose, that surrender to win. Surrender was an alien concept. We fight to the death, you know what I mean? We keep fighting. And there's a real strength in the vulnerability.
Absolutely courageous. Absolutely courageous. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that to you. I said, you know, when you did kind of say to yourself, right, I need, just saying to somebody, look, I really need that help. I need help. Coming from a place where every experience you've had that you can't get vulnerable. Every time you've got vulnerable, it's hurt. You've been hurt. The experience.
Well, you know the mantra.
Yeah.
If you show weakness, people take liberties.
Exactly.
So from a young age, I'm showing this exterior.
You would, yeah.
And I've heard this before. I end up with a reputation that's got nothing to do with who I am.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's a defense to keep people away. And so when we let people in, I think that's where I found the strength, actually.
And like you said, vulnerability is absolutely courageous. It's where the change starts to happen, doesn't it, really? And that's what happens.
It's the key, so I really believe that that's the key. And if any young people are watching, you know, about just being able to talk about how you really feel and who you are, do you know what I mean? That's the thing that I'd lost for years and years and years, that I couldn't tell you how I really felt.
And
so,
and the thing is, I think what you said it there, you know, if we've got viewers listening, young people, whoever, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's like you spoke about the chef guy. He was the man. He was a guy. You got to find someone that you can just say, do you know what? Like, as hard as it is, it's like, no, I'm not all right. I do need help, you know. And for you, you know, there was probably a few people that came into your life, but at the time, you know, it wasn't for you to open up. You wasn't ready for that.
I think we're a lot better in today's age around that whole thing nowadays around it's okay to not be okay.
Oh, definitely.
That toxic masculinity where, you know, boys don't cry, don't tell anyone how you feel, blah, blah, blah. I think we're moving a lot further away from that.
We're breaking cycles, man.
Men.
Yeah, definitely. We're breaking cycles.
About men getting vulnerable, men getting emotional, men being asked for help. And I suppose from where we come from, not where we come from, but the experiences we've had and the events that have happened, we end up building these brick walls to stop people getting in and seeing who we are. And I'd been a frightened little boy that just wanted help all my life. Terrified. Just wanted a hug. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Or, you know.
Can't let them know how I'm feeling. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. So
that
was the start of
the journey started. So the journey started where you've kind of made some changes. You're in a 12-step kind of fellowship. You're doing some form of recovery. You're starting to, you've asked for help, and now inevitably things are starting to change. So tell us a little bit about your early days, and because
the early days, looking back on it, see the thing that I'd ran from all my life from a really young age was any form of responsibility. I just ran away. I couldn't take, you know, not getting old, but responsibility just means the ability to respond. And I'd lost the ability to respond. I reacted to life as and when it came. I had no ability to sort of pause. When I had a feeling, I'd react. So I think the early days of recovery, we're starting to connect with emotions and feelings that had been suppressed. I had no real ability on how to communicate to people. I had no sense of who I was. And so starting the whole process of starting to get a kind and loving relationship with myself has been an ongoing process. And at first, there were very sharp highs and deep lows. Life was a roller coaster. I was learning so much about me. I hadn't really had any work history. I'd had no career per se. I hadn't paid any bills. You know, I drove car, I didn't have a driving license. So it was just starting the process of being part of society and looking at getting a job, looking to pay tax, getting a driving license, take my test, which I failed twice, but I kept coming back, you know what I mean? And I think it was just about integrating back into a society that I'd felt so apart from for years. And I suppose on some level felt undeserving, or that I wasn't worth enough to be part of this society. Hence, I sat on the outside of it. So the first couple of years was really about, you know, developing some coping strategies, learning to take responsibility, learning how to communicate, learning how to be a parent. You know, my children were 6 and 13 when I got into recovery. And I'll be honest with you, so I didn't know how to love my children. I didn't know how to discipline my children. So I think that the first couple of years of recovery was learning how to love myself, learning how to be disciplined with myself, learning how to care about myself. And then I could start caring about the parenting stuff has been a real difficult one for me over the years. Do you know what I mean? Learning how to be a friend, learning how to be a son. You know, I developed a relationship with my mother in recovery. That's an ongoing process, but being in recovery, learning how to be responsible, learning how to turn up and be the best son that I can be the best dad that I can be the best friend that I can be. Struggled in relationships. You know, I was with my baby mother for 19 years. We're best friends today and we support each other. And I've had both my children live with me, one for 4 years, one for 5 years. But these are real gifts that I thought were beyond my remit, if you like. So the first few years was just about getting a relationship with myself, I think, and it was just about finding some stability, going back to school, re-educating myself, and it was constantly, and you know, 17 years later, thank God, you know, I still have the ability to ask for help. I still need to ask for help. But at one point during my recovery, at around 10 years, I'd lost the ability to say that I was struggling. My ego had reasserted himself and I'd got some of the outside stuff. And that was kind of telling me that I was all right. And with a bit of recovery time and helping others. And all of a sudden I'm going back to telling you I'm all right. 10 years ago, I'm telling you, and I'm so not all right internally. And I'm full of anxiety and fear and I'm miserable, yet all the masks come back. And I'm really grateful. I almost had a second rock bottom, emotional rock bottom, you know, in recovery, where I'd kind of lost myself again, and I'd lost the sense of what the program I worked was about, and I'd stopped helping people and just started helping myself. And we spoke earlier about I can still equate happiness to being out there. So as long as I get her, as long as I get it, as long as I get to that place. And you said at the start of this podcast, and I say this all the time, that, okay, so my external view at the moment, I'm looking in my garden, which is palm trees and swimming pool and beautiful plants and the sun setting over there. So my external view is great. But if my internal world isn't right, I might as well be in a phone box in Peckham, so. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter what my external world's right, as long as, so that's what I meant, but I have to kind of work from within. So the first couple of years of recovery was kind of getting that relationship with myself, but then I've had to embark more on an internal journey. And if my rock bottom was one of a spiritual nature, then that's the kind of journey that I've only in recent times have really started embarking on, because a lot of recovery language, regardless of 12 steps, smart, whatever, is aligned along a spiritual direction. We use the word spirituality a lot in the service that I provide, in where I get my support. There's a lot about spirituality, and that's very individual, and what it means to you might mean something completely different for me. But I think the essence of spirituality for me is just being all right with me. and I was never all right with me. And I've not been all right with me in recovery as well. So the more I go in, the more I'm all right with me, which means I'm less likely to look out there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
So it's been a long journey.
Yeah. So what is it? What are you doing at the moment that's looking after Nick inside, like the internal condition you was talking about? What are you doing that's helping Nick?
Right. Well, the
okay.
whole the whole holistic thing is, you know, I have a substance misuse disorder. Yeah, I have an addictive personality. You know, if it looks good, feels good, tastes good, sounds good, I want it. I want lots of it. I want yours, and I want it yesterday. So those process addictions, be it food, relationships, or whatever, have ended up being quite detrimental for me. So recently, I've really been exploring of what I'm putting into my body. So I'm starting to eat a lot healthier. I'm looking at nutrition. I'm looking at healthy ways of eating, balanced food, healthy foods. I've embarked on a kind of exercise regime, and every morning at 5:30, I'm walking. I've even started running now. I'm doing like a couple of K here and just starting to. And the more of that I do, the more connected to myself. So eating well, regularly exercise. For the last 3 or 4 months, 10, 20 minutes meditation every day. I have certain spiritual practices that I do that I was quite resistant to. And it's interesting, my process is I'm often very resistant to the things that I know are good for me. And I know if I do certain things, I'll feel good. Knowing that I'll feel good, I don't want to do them. So there's still a part of me that's quite self-destructive or will still be quite familiar to have me in that place. So regular exercise now, diet, meditation, helping others, being of service, you know, it's transformed. I'd say only in the last 6 months that I've really started seeing the benefits of the more of that I do, the more spiritually connected I am to myself. That, you know, I'm a human being, I'm a man, but I'm less likely to want to find something out there to make my insides feel good. You know, you've often heard it that I'm looking for an external solution for an internal problem.
Condition. Yeah.
So, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the other little cliche is, you know, if I don't go within, I'll go without anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because that ain't going to work in the long run. I've tried for 17 years to, that car, that kettle, that, you know what I mean? It's a never-ending journey. So trying something different, healthy eating, exercise, meditation. Just, I'll tell you some of the principal soul that was always within me, but I found I'm actually very sensitive. I'm actually quite kind, can be quite generous. Do you know what I mean? I'm very forgiving, can be very gentle as well. Yet I had this sort of external defense or facade to give the impression that, do you know what I mean? And I've really sort of found that I'm quite a sensitive guy, do you know what I mean? And could be quite kind and gentle and have the ability to care. And I think that's coming from being kind and gentle and caring to myself, that I can now be that for others as well. Do you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
So it's a journey and it's a life's work. And my mantra, that journey continues, is I don't think I get anywhere. It's kind of what I'm doing right here, right now. And all of my life until I got into recovery was, how do I get away from right here, right now?
Yeah.
Being right here, right now is so uncomfortable. I need to do something to get away from right here, right now. So practicing being present is another thing that's really important.
Definitely.
Trying to be in the now, because right here, right now, talking to you, I am the best I've ever been. It's when I go forwards or backwards. So when I go forwards, I'm in fear, I'm in anxiety, I'm in worry. And if I go back, I'm in shoulda, coulda, woulda, regret, remorse. So, and what all that does is it ruins my now. And actually right here, right now, at 5:30, I'm the best that I've been, and I'm present and I'm connected. And that's all we got, soul.
Yeah.
I haven't got tomorrow because it ain't here. And I ain't got yesterday because we're done. Do you know what I mean? So
definitely.
So it continues, mate. And
Absolutely, man. And it's really nice to see that you're on this journey, and things are kind of like you are going much more inward with it. And I think with recovery, it's like that. You have roller coasters, we up and you've got to have different.
Yeah,
I think everyone goes through the process of where you're gonna kind of like the ego is gonna come back. It's gonna kind of want to
yeah,
sabotage, and because we get well, we think, well, okay, we know it all, and then what happens? Something like you said, an emotional rock bottom happens. Usually a relationship
yeah,
breakdown, or something that's really kind of prevalent in your life that you lose, or you find that you're doing
yeah,
stuff that that, like you said, subconsciously we know. You said it earlier, when you was young, you knew some of the stuff that we was doing wasn't right, and we didn't want to do it, but we
yeah,
did it. And it's the same stuff as when we
yeah,
get old, when we're recovering, and then that's another, I suppose, process of a journey that you've got to embark on. And it seems like
yeah.
the last 6 months you've had another kind of, like, I suppose, not maybe rock bottom, but a change, like another path, a new layer,
Yeah,
Yeah,
an absolute awakening,
yeah,
and that rock bottom, like you said, the relationship stuff, the relationship with myself, and has been a real struggle for me, because I
mm,
do, commitment, responsibility, intimacy
mm,
is an ongoing struggle for me. But there has been an awakening of sorts in the last 6 months, where I'm starting to treat myself a lot nicer, and I've learned what is good for me to do in terms of some more holistic. I'm doing Pilates a couple of times a week. I mean, Bali in itself lends itself to some
yeah,
very high energy here of healing. I've done cleansing ceremonies and really kind of
mm,
engaged with the local culture, and really kind of embracing some of the spiritual
brilliant.
practices here. I've done breath works,
Mm,
I've done sound bowls, stuff that I kind of was a bit skeptical about. But the breath works have been life changing, because
mm,
I've known this a while, but there's so much emotion and
mm,
trauma locked in our physical, but we're
yeah,
so in our heads.
yeah.
And so the breath work just really helps me move some emotion and unlock some stuff that's in our physical body. So that's been a revelation, to be honest with you, on that stuff.
Absolutely. I found, well, my partner helped me find yoga, and
Yeah,
I do
brilliant.
yoga and meditation every morning, well, most
Yeah,
mornings, I say. And I
yeah,
know
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
you talked about that, that trauma that's locked in our bodies, and it helps move the energy around, and
Mm,
yeah, I get it, man. And the journey continues. I listen, like on your
yeah,
posts every time I go on social and I see your posts, and you kind of talk about where you're, and the journey continues, and it does. It
yeah.
continues as long as we keep plugging in, keep doing what we're doing, and like you said, keep connecting to ourselves and not have to
Yeah, I
try and look
think
for external stuff. Yeah.
the key is, which I'm learning, is remain open and teachable, and ask for help. So coming to a new island, albeit Bali, and I didn't know anybody, I had to really kind of start again. And I had to
Mm,
go meetings every day, get phone numbers. Do you fancy going out for a coffee? I had
mm,
to step out of my comfort zone. And I
mm,
think to anyone young that's listening, or old, the only way I found that really works is hard work, soul. If
yeah.
I try to shortcut the system and start and not conform, and try and get from A to C without doing B, and
Yeah.
predominantly lazy, just wanted everything put in me, and felt entitled that I've
Mm,
had a hard life, it should all be put to me. I get up every day, got a good work ethic. In the 16 years, I think I've had about 10, 12 days off sick. We
wow.
show up, we suit up, I'm on time. If I say I'm going to be here at 4:30 to do a podcast with Sol, guess what? I was here 10 minutes early. I was ready to go. We're
Yeah.
accountable, we're dependable, uh, responsible. And I think that's the transformation. And
Brilliant.
therein lies, we need to flip the script, because I can still listen to that old script, the
Yeah.
narrative, the message. You're not enough. You're a failure. You're never going to make anything of yourself. You're a waste of time. You're unlovable. You're useless. I now have evidence and experience that
Brilliant.
contradicts that thinking. And, I know you and I can quite
Mm,
comfortably say that we have flipped the script,
definitely.
flipped it, mate.
Absolutely.
So,
Nick, it's been absolutely great having you on there. I'm going to kind of wrap it up in a
it's been
minute.
wonderful, Sol.
Thank
It's
you
been
so
wonderful.
much, man. It's really good to kind of see what you're doing. You're an absolutely inspiration to a lot of us. I see, you like, I look at what you've done, and I know we've got a mutual friend that's doing the same sort of thing now.
Yeah.
He's come over there.
Yeah.
It just warms me to see people take courageous steps and get on and do what they're doing. And you are definitely, up there with that. So Nick,
as you are, Sol, and I think in life, do you know what? I don't think you get anywhere. Take risks.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Follow your dreams. I did a vision board over a year ago about this, and it's all come true.
Wow.
So, but a bit of action. There's
Manifesting
obstacles in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to navigate.
Yeah.
There's some obstacles. Do you know what I mean? But if you're focused, set yourself goals, ask for help. You know what I mean? Take risks in life, and it blows me away. And I know what you're doing, Sol, as well. And
Brilliant.
It's a testament to, doing stuff like this is great. It's putting out an awareness. I did it on my video for transitions. I was told a leopard never changes his spots. Well, actually, I've seen lots of leopards change their spots, and you're a leopard who's changed his spots. Beautiful.
Brilliant.
Beautiful.
So are you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. So listen, anybody listening, hit the subscribe, hit the like. So Nick, how can people get in contact with you through your? Is it Instagram? Are you on? You got transitions to Bali?
Instagram, Facebook, website, transitions Bali. If you put it anywhere, it should come up.
Okay, what I'll do, I'll get the details from you and I'll put it under the notes on this podcast show so people want to kind of maybe want to speak to you regarding that stuff.
Absolutely.
Listen, absolutely amazing, Nick. Listen, love you lots, man. Thank you for your, your story is inspirational. Thank you, man. Cheers.
Thank you.
Yo, what's happening, people? I want to welcome you to Flip the Script podcast show. My name is Sol and I am the host. So, on this show, you'll get the opportunity to listen to some inspiring people talking about real, honest, heartfelt, no holds barred transformation stories. We get to hear from ex-drug users, reformed criminals, all sharing their personal stories and how they manage not only to turn their lives around, but now are helping others to do the same. We also get to hear from courageous men and women sharing their experience of surviving high-level trauma and what they are doing or done to start that much-needed healing process. They say that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forward. On this show, we get to understand what that actually means. Everyone's got a story, but not everyone gets to share theirs. So remember, hit the subscribe button, press like, so we can continue to spread the message that change is possible even in the darkest of places.